Hi, everybody. I'm Bryan Mudd, a fan of South Plains politics. Here's your talking points for this week. This guy's legislative session just got a whole lot more important. One of Dustin Burrow's jobs will be finding a way to cut your property taxes. We'll look at one really interesting proposal and how another lawmaker is working to make sure a special needs girl and those responsible for her death are never forgotten.
From the studios of KMAC Television in Lubbock, your local election headquarters. This is Talking Points with Bryan Mudd, brought to you by Capital Mortgage Services.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Also this week, timing is everything. When and how you say things is paramount in politics these days, and you can be brash and say what's on your mind, like our president, if you have the party support to back it up. If not, elected officials can run themselves into problems if they decide to run their mouths at the wrong time. Here's a little example. It was School Choice Week down in Austin with lots of folks lobbying for public funding for private schools and vouchers and things like that. 2 years ago, the governor and lieutenant governor were both at this rally saying this is a great thing. This year, no governor or lieutenant governor. They're fixing public school funding this year, so no Senate support and no school choice. So any lawmaker who has objections to the issue can feel free to say what they think, like, say, Lubbock's John Frullo.
But we have to monitor them. Again, we are sending them money, and we need to make sure that money is wisely spent. At the end of the day, we have to look at how those kids are educated and make sure that we, as stewards of the taxpayers, are doing that in a manner that's responsible and getting the most bang for the buck.
Sounds great. Perfect timing. Mr. Frullo gets a boost in his committee assignments this year. He's on calendars, vice chairmanship of International Relations and Economic Development, and a position on the House Higher Education Committee. And with the vet school project pending, here's a look at text representation here. Frullo's from Lubbock, Matt Schaefer and John Smithy are Red Raiders, so good news all around. And Amarillo's Kel Seliger was chair of the Senate Higher Education Committee until he wasn't. You see, in the last session, when school choice was a big thing for the lieutenant governor, Seliger was the only Republican who voted no, starting a feud that, as KMAC's Wes Rappaport found out, boiled over even before the start of this session.
Yeah, we're talking about Kel Seliger here. He's been a member of the Texas legislature since 2004 and held positions on powerful committees during that time. Now he's paying for picking a fight with one of the most powerful people in the state. A Senate showdown. Powerful rural lawmaker Kel Seliger's criticism of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has cost him influence in the state's upper chamber. Seliger has been critical of Patrick in the past and fended off a campaign to oust him from office in the November election.
Because they can't beat me at the ballot box, I think they can try and marginalize me, and they can't.
It's been a back and forth between these two, Seliger biting back after his committee changes and a Patrick staffer who said he shouldn't complain.
It was extremely snide and really unbecoming for a member of the staff, lieutenant governors or my staff. I didn't say anything of the sort, and that assertion is disingenuous. And I have a recommendation from Ms. Sylvester and her lips in my back end.
When asked about why he went after Seliger's committee status,
I made those decisions based on a number of factors.
You know, he will talk about his motivations, but let me point out that he didn't endorse me either. And quite frankly, his endorsement would have been more helpful to me than mine to him.
In a statement, Patrick says he gave Seliger a chance to apologize, but that Seliger refused. Patrick says Seliger wanted the staffer fired, a deal Patrick called unimaginable. In Austin, I'm Wes Rappaport. Back to you.
All right, Wes, thank you. And after all that, we have to bring in Caprock's #1 troublemaker, Jay Leeson, host of the Other Side of Texas podcast on the radio, and AJ everywhere else. He was on the other end of that interview.
Wasn't me.
Let's go back and talk about this feud, though. Dan Patrick made a real attempt to try and push Seliger out back in the primaries, right?
Back in the primary. I actually thought that Seliger would lose his chairmanship whenever he opposed property tax reform last time around in school vouchers. Didn't, went into the primary. If you don't want to take him out of his chairmanships, what do? You put your chief political advisor on top of him to try and get him beat in the primary.
Right.
Come back around, you replace him in higher education without any explanation. Long-time sitting second-ranking Republican in the Senate. And then you make up this committee. And look, I'm so agriculture, nobody's agriculture compared to me on the radio or in media. Like, I understand the issues in front of us, but I also understand from a state level, here's what you do. If you make up a committee, this used to be in Charles Perry's Rural Affairs and Waters Committee and Agriculture, He pulled out agriculture. Here's what you do at the state level. You're a libertarian and you tell them to stay out of your business. Stop with the regulation, and that's the extent of it. And this is what I argue today in the Lubbock Avalanche Journal, Amarillo Globe. It was a made-up committee to try to find a place to put the second-ranking Republican in the Senate, and it didn't stick. Seliger obviously felt like it was a slight. He was on finance, he was on education, public education, and then on higher education.
Did he think, though, that he would still be fighting this battle when we started this legislative session? Seliger.
Look, my argument has been it wasn't a matter of when Seliger, or not a matter of if he lost his chairmanship, it was a matter of when. The lieutenant governor was always looking for a reason to do it, and Seliger in those comments, it was aimed at a staffer, and Seliger told me on air and off air, had he had a staffer who said something like that to a sitting senator or the lieutenant governor, he'd have fired him. And that was the indignation behind those comments, that she could put her lips on his rear end.
Right.
The lieutenant governor made it out to be almost this Me Too movement of, well, you can't say that about a woman. It was lewd. The same man, by the way, who had a vasectomy on air as a radio host,
right.
This was lewd. And then replaced him, if I might add, with Bob Hall, Republican out of Dallas, who had an order filed against him by his ex-wife, a wife of 23 years, who said most of those 23 years, now gauge this with lips on rear end versus an ex-wife who comes out and makes the claim for the majority of those 23 years, I was physically and sexually assaulted. That doesn't, it diminishes the credibility of Patrick's claims.
Well, and Patrick tells the Dallas Morning News.
Yeah,
Patrick tells Dallas Morning News that Seliger had been a guy bad-mouthing other Republicans on your show and others in the past.
Which is a blatant lie.
Didn't happen on your show?
It has never happened. I can provide the transcripts that show that that's not. Now, look, I don't mean to get in the way of a good shooting match, a good Texas politics shooting match. And this is a great Texas political story. But he's insinuating that I've afforded that opportunity to kill Seliger. He's dragging me into the match. He cannot prove it.
You know, what still is the kicker in all this to me is that the situation that Patrick will have now, that he's apparently cut off his nose despite his face, you need 19 senators to bring a vote to the floor in the Senate. There are now 18 Republicans, and number 19 is Seliger. So at some point, Patrick is probably going to have to come to him and ask for help on who knows how many votes.
That's right. He can also now be the 13th vote that blocks whatever comes to the floor. Maybe that's what's behind the lieutenant governor not being as emboldened as he's been in previous sessions to bring, here's my 30 priorities. We're going to pass these priorities out of the Senate. You've not seen those. And the other point I'd like to make is that the lieutenant governor won his general election by just 400,125 votes. 87,000 and a half, somewhere around there, were from Seliger's district alone. So you go back to that well in the re-election, and you've not only have you cut off Seliger, you sidelined Seliger altogether, you sidelined the influence of that district as well. See how that plays out for the lieutenant governor. There may be some other issues that the lieutenant governor may be able to make up for this on. I think we probably both think of one, and that's the vet school that's short in the Senate.
Yeah, doesn't have much in the Senate right now at all. Good to see you, my man.
Good to be here.
Be careful on the radio now, you heard somebody. Let's do this week's poll question. Would you support House Bill 140, which would automatically register you to vote when you receive or change your driver's license? Talk to us on the KMAC News Facebook page, on everythinglubbock.com. Click on Talking Points. Give us your opinion. Straight ahead, the president chooses a Lubbock native for a big job, and Lubbock Congressman Jody Arrington here this week talking with law enforcement about border security. We'll talk walls and immigration with him next on Talking Points.